Can you please tell us your experience about the subject matter?
Okay, I came to Lagos in 1992 to stay with my uncle because my parents could not afford to take care of us. So I came to Lagos to live with an uncle. So one night, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, okay. So one night, as I was sleeping, I felt a hand touch my breast, and the hand started playing with my nipple, and that hand went from my nipple to my vagina. And I didn't know who was doing that to me, but by the next time, the person and the hand comes again, plays with my breast, goes to my vagina, opened my dress, and that was where, like they say in local parlance, that's how trouble started. So now you want to ask me who was doing this to me? I never knew who was doing this to me because it was in the dark. But one day, someone said to me, if you ever tell anybody what's going on in this house, I will kill you. That was when I was able to put a face. And unfortunately for me, it was my uncle. I loved my uncle so much, but that day, I think I died that day, a physical death, because bad enough this is happening to me. Now, I need you to have a background story. I was born and brought up by Christian parents. Sex was never mentioned in our house before. So the fact that someone was doing this to me was a total shock. So he told me, my uncle said to me that nobody will believe me if I talk, and that my mother was not going to believe me, you know. So my mother came to Lagos for a program in church, and I tried to tell my mother, and she didn't believe me. She saw me with a sanitary towel, and she was asking my uncle's wife, what is Anthonia doing with a sanitary towel? And my uncle's wife said, I started seeing my period. And my mother started making fun of me that, yeah, so this one too is seeing her period. I'm sorry if my voice is not as lively as you expect. I'm really overwhelmed. So he looked at me, and the look said to me, I told you nobody will believe you. You know. So in 1998, one day, my friend invited me to a church, and the pastor prayed, and he said he wanted to see the newcomers. So I stepped out. And the pastor said to me, you want to say something to me? We're in his office. Then he sent everybody out. And I said, no, I don't want to say anything to you. Now, I've never seen this man before. And he said to me, you want to tell me your uncle is sexually molesting you? Those were his words. And you don't know what to do. So at that point, I knelt down in his office and I started crying. I cried so much because for the first time, an adult is going to listen to me. For the first time, I'm going to be able to cry out. For the first time, I'm going to be able to tell somebody that this is what I've been going through, you know. So when I finished crying, he said to me, Anthonia, sit down. That is going to happen again tonight. That you want it to stop. I said, yes. Then he said, tonight, when your uncle comes, immediately he raises your dress up, you start shouting. You shout until everybody wakes up. And that was exactly what I did. So he said to me, when they ask you why you are shouting, pretend like you're having a bad dream because your father died. So make it look like you're having a nightmare about your dad. So that was exactly what I did. So the following morning, my uncle looked at me from my head to my toe. He hissed, he walked away. That was the end of the abuse physically. But by that time, the mental and emotional damage has been done. And that journey, the journey to wellness has taken me over 20 years, suffering from the psychological effects of sexual abuse, you know, self-guilt, I used to blame myself a lot that I brought it upon myself because we're members of Deeper Life, so I never had any trouser. I was only wearing long dresses, you know? So I used to blame myself that maybe perhaps if I was wearing trousers, it would have been difficult for him, you know, trying to make excuses why I felt it was my fault. Then I would blame myself because I felt that God hated me. That was why this happened to me. Why did he choose me? Why did he allow this to happen to me? Then as a Christian girl, you know, my mother used to tell me that since my parents didn't have money, you're supposed to, the only thing you have to give to your husband is to present yourself as a living sacrifice, you know. So, and the fact that this uncle is an uncle that I love so much, he was my favorite uncle.
Sorry to comment, how old were you then?
I was 12 when I came to Lagos, but the abuse started at the age of 14.
Okay.
Yes, you know, so the guilt and the shame, so I would always fall into depression and all that. Now we talked about getting help, you know, but when I was growing up, I'm going to be 42 in October. Nobody said we could find help. There was no social media. We didn't have this kind of awareness. In fact, there were no GSM phones until recently. So there was no way you could phone anybody. So every time I tried to write a letter, you know, to my mom, my uncle would say to me that make sure you don't write what's going on here in that letter, because he's the one that would take it to the post office. So when I finished writing the letter, he would read the letter the way I could cry to any adult. So by the time my uncle stopped, the damage had been done. The journey to wellness, thank God for a supportive spouse. You know, it's going to take another 1 hour to talk about that journey.
You should share that with us, because you know it's part of your healing process. Because you know, like
yes,
you should, if you can, if you're willing, you should.
Yes, I will. Don't worry. Okay, so by the time he stopped, I knew that the only thing that could take me out of my uncle's house, because my family is a very small family, the only thing that could take me out of my uncle's house was to get married. So every guy who came close to me and wanted to marry me, I was available to marry him, you know, but different stuff would happen and I won't marry them, you know. One of them said to me, okay, now, sexual abuse swings you in two ways. You know, it's either you become, you begin to like sex, or you begin to hate it. So I fall in the category that don't want to hear about sex. I fall in that category, yes. So any person who came around me and wanted sex, I will cut off from that person. You know, then I was in a relationship, and the guy, he slapped me, and I knew that I couldn't go on with this person because I was going to kill him. I had a lot of anger issues bottled inside of me, and I was looking for someone to deal with, you know. So I knew that this one, I wasn't going to marry him. And he would tell me that, oh, Tonia, when we get married, I'll lock you up. Hardened, you know, like stone cold, you know. I felt very disappointed at life, and I felt that why would God choose this to happen to me? Okay, so I met this guy in my pastor's office. He was looking for a wife, and I was looking for a husband, and I didn't know, you know. So after 2 years of friendship, he said to me that he wanted to marry me, and he was very ready to marry because he was already 37 by then. And I was very ready to leave my uncle's house, you know. So by the time he said he wanted to marry me, I just went home, I told my uncle's wife, and I began to plan my wedding myself. Now, what I'm going to tell you now is going to sound very strange, but the truth is that's what happened. So Immediately, I agreed to marry him. Before my family was waiting for introduction and all that, we already picked a date. Mr. Miyabi? We picked a date. I picked my wedding date myself. Do you understand? We printed the card even before they did. Well, it was when the card came, my uncle was like, but they have not done what Yoruba calls momimwe. I just wanted to leave that environment. I just wanted to leave. Now, I wasn't thinking about the responsibility that comes with being married. I just wanted to get out of that environment. Now, I practically planned my wedding myself. Oh, a call is coming in. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I have to put it. My phone is ringing, so I had to cut it. Sorry, my phone was ringing. I had to cut it. Yes.
All right.
To cut a long story short, we got married within 6 months that we met. Now, on the day of the wedding, I didn't remember that when people get married, they're supposed to do some things. I didn't remember that aspect because I just wanted to leave that environment. So when we got home, I just saw my husband. He removed his jacket and I had serious flashback. I began to panic. I had serious anxiety issues. So I said to him that I would like to talk to him. And he said, I called his name and I said to him that, please, I need you to do me a favor. So I said, please, can you do me the honor? Let's live like brother and sister. Because I didn't want to see his penis. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it. I now told him why I was afraid. Then I made him make a promise to me that he would never ask me who my abuser was. Because my abuser is the only father figure that I had. And at that time, because we just got married, I was afraid that if he knew that I didn't have anybody, that he would treat me anyhow. So I didn't want that to happen, So I said to him to make a promise to me that he would never ask me who my abuser was. So he was in shock, So I used to fall into depression a lot, bad one that sometimes I won't be able to go to church. Severe depression. I've been suicidal twice. In 2012, now I was married and I have 3 children. I'm trying to cut it short. So I was suicidal again. And that day, it got to a point that I would hear the voices that would tell me, Anthonia, kill yourself, finish it up. This life is not worth it. You're so useless. Why did God pick you? Why did this happen to you? I had serious complex issues, like serious complex issues, I felt I wasn't good enough. So if any little thing happened to me, I would always make reference to my past that, it's because of what happened to me. That's why this is happening to me. If anybody tries to treat me badly, I never made excuses for people. I made excuses for myself. I said, it's because I'm not good enough. That's why this person doesn't want to hang out with me. I'm not good enough. That's why this person is treating me like this. It's one of the things that sexual abuse does to you. It robs you of your self-esteem. It takes away your self-worth. It makes you feel useless and hopeless. I'll be telling myself, I'll be telling my husband that, when I die, you will get a new wife. One day I said to him, I said, marry a girl that is very submissive. Don't marry a stubborn girl like Tonia. I used to say stupid, crazy things like that, And I used to tell him, because he's a very nice guy, and I used to say to him that I don't deserve you. You are a good person. You deserve a good person, not somebody with all the baggages that I have come into this marriage with, He used to be the one to do school runs, He would go for open days for the children. You know, one day he would take the children to church. One day he came back from church and he said to me that someone was asking him if he was a widower. And I said, why? Did you tell them that I was dead? He now said, no, but the person said they haven't seen him with his wife, but he's always going to church with children. So the person just wanted to know. And, you know, that thing really hit me, you know. Then my children began to grow up, and I knew that in my mind, I knew that I don't want these children to grow up without a mother figure. Now, mother figure, I was physically present, but I was not emotionally present, you know. So one day, I saw a post on Facebook, Dr. Memuna Kadiri, she's a psychiatrist. So she wrote about seeking help for severe depression. That was when I knew that you could find help for severe depression and suicide thoughts. I never knew that you could get professional help. I thought that once you pray and you read your Bible and you have faith, you believe God, everything will just go away just like that. Because if you say you have mental health issues as a Christian, you're going to sound faithless, you know, and you're going to be shamed and stigmatized. That's another stigma on its own, because now we can talk about mental health, but in those days we were not, like in 2015, when I sought help for my mental health issues, we're not talking publicly about mental health and getting help like we are now, the kind of information we have now. You know, so I took down her details, but I didn't call her. So on one of those days when I heard that voice again, I was in front of my mirror. I was dressing up to go to my shop, and I just heard the voice, and the voice just said to me that, finish it up, Anthonia, this life is not worth it, you know. So immediately I recognized that voice. But by that time, I knew that I could get help, so I didn't want to die again. You know, I didn't want to die again at that point. So I quickly called Dr. Kadiri. I told her to give me the address of her office. She runs a mental health facility. So she gave me the address of her office. Now, I was ashamed of the fact that my family was going to find out that I checked myself into a mental health home. So I deleted her number from my phone. I didn't want my family to see the last person I spoke to. So I gave my sister-in-law my phone, and the long and short of the story is that I literally checked myself into a mental health home so that I could get help without my family knowing where I was. So it was when I was there that I got help. You know, okay. I got therapy, I got counseling, you know, I was treated. And by the way, I'm hypertensive, so I take medication daily, you know, I take medication every day. I have to take my medication. Sometimes I have to deal with panic attacks and anxiety, but I'm a lot better now. I can tell you, I can share the story now without thinking, oh, why are you saying this, you know? So by the time I came back from the mental health home, my hair is not neat because I haven't gone out since the lockdown. Yes. Okay. So I changed my hair color from black to gold, which is a representation of the new person who is not ashamed to talk about her past, you know, someone who is ready to tell her story so that another girl listens and says, oh, really? Thank God I'm not the only one who is going through this. I will be fine. You know, it's a bad thing when it happens, but you see, you can actually get help, heal, and you will not talk from the place of pain again, which is why I agreed to do this with you.
Okay. If I may ask, did you at any point, after you made attempt to talk to your mom about it, when she came to Lagos then, did you at any point try to have that conversation with her again?
Yes, and she, because when my father died, my uncle really stood by us. It was difficult for my mother to believe, and I don't blame her. I used to blame her, but now I don't blame her again. I don't blame her again. She's just like the typical Nigerian mother. You know, a lot of people think that sexual abusers are strangers, are monsters with horns. You know, but statistics is saying that 90% of sexual abusers are people that we know. their family members and their friends, people you can actually vouch for, people you can actually almost put your life on the line for, to say that this person cannot do this. That's why when some survivors come out to speak, we begin to question the story and we tell them, this story is not adding up. This story doesn't make sense because this person has a very good image. We cannot place this person side by side with the image of the monster who is taking advantage of the victim, So it was difficult for my mom to believe because my uncle is a very nice person. When my father died, he stood for my mother. He did not allow them shave my mother's hair because my mother was 37 years old when my father died. So, of course, in the village, they said my mother killed my dad because my dad was 46. So he stood, he refused those people to barb my mother's hair. Now, when they brought the water, they used to wash my dad's body for my mother to drink. My uncle refused my mother to drink that water. Do you understand? Now, my mother was supposed to stay in the village and mourn. He said that my mother should go back to Port Harcourt and mourn her husband. So he said that my mother should mourn the Christian way. She shouldn't do the traditional way because my mom is a Christian. Do you understand? Now, he has been very nice to us right from time. So this person who was this nice, do you understand me? It was difficult for my mother to believe. Now my mom has believed me, but it took my speaking out publicly like this for my mother to believe me, I was going to speak at a conference and my mom said to me, where am I going to? She was in my house. So I told her, oh, I'm going to Ekiti State tomorrow and I'm going to talk to them about sexual abuse. And my mother said that this thing, that what am I going to go and tell them? Am I going to go and tell them that it's my uncle that abused me? I said, yes, I'll tell them. She said, it was at that point it hit her and she said, you mean this thing you have been saying all these years is the truth? And I said, yes, Mama. And my mom broke down and my mother started crying. And that she did not believe because she didn't know it was true, So I had to forgive her because I was very angry, of course, when she didn't believe me. But with the benefit of hindsight now, I know that a lot of parents don't want to believe that that kind of a thing has happened. Then the person who does it, that's why if you're raped by a random person, it's very easy to talk about it. But if it is a family member, a very close family member, it's difficult to talk about it. The only reason why I'm talking is because I can't be bullied. I'm not the kind of person that my family can bully because they've tried. Do you understand? I've been bullied into not talking. And the worst is even that I'm married. I've been married for 17 years. So as a married woman, you don't come out saying stuff like this. You understand? So, but we need to realize incest is the worst, is the most difficult part of sexual abuse to talk about because it's family members, and his loved ones. If you know the number of people who have gone through incest and they have never spoken before, it's unbelievable. I run a support group. I know what I'm telling you. Fathers who are sleeping with their daughters and the girls have done abortions and they can't have children today because their fathers have perforated their uteruses. Do you understand? Some of them, by the uterus was not fully matured, when they got pregnant. And because of the shame and the stigma of carrying a pregnancy for the dad, they have to do an abortion. There are some who the abortion was induced and they had to give birth to the dead child. But you see, we don't talk about it because it's difficult. You want to paint this picture of, the perfect family. You don't want any, most people don't want people. Many ladies who have bottled up anger because you can't talk because it's a family related issue. Then you have a lot of women who are not emotionally and mentally present in the life of their children. I can tell you this because I was one of them. Like my husband practically brought up those children. Do you understand? It's just now that I'm getting involved in the lives of my children. You know. So why did I agree to do this with you? I want another person who is listening to me to know that
Okay, thank you so much.
an erection. Today, I'm sure you would have seen a video that has gone viral since last night. A woman that was beating her 2-year-old child. She beat that child so much, and the child has almost lost one of her eyes because she woke up in the middle of the night and she found a man sexually molesting that 2-year-old child, and she felt it was the fault of the child. And she beat the hell out of that child. The video is, yes, the video is online. The video has gone viral. The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Offences Response Team is intervening in the case. So we have a lot of victim blaming, victim shaming, making the survivor think that it's their fault, and we say that people should speak. When they speak, we refuse to believe. So I'm forgiving my mom.
Oh, okay. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I would like to ask, I know that you have a support group. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Because I couldn't hear you clearly. I had to hurry up to get my earpiece. I know you have a support group, and I know that you've had so many women share their experiences with you. I know you've had so many women share their experiences with you. Would you say that, how would you rate because I know that a lot of people, most of these cases are unreported. People don't come out to report these cases. But from your experience with other women, what can you say, what are the type of stories that you've heard that might sound strange to us? Because a lot of people are actually, if I may say, spitting rubbish everywhere on social media. And
It's
now,
painful.
it's painful. So, from your conversation with the women in your support group, what can you say? How would you rate this abuse in our society today?
And their center is located inside Lasut in Lagos here. Now, they treat cases of sexual violence. Do you know that Mirabel Center has treated a 3-month-old baby that was raped by the father? And there's also the story of an 18 story of the girl who her father and her mother are the ones that sexually abusing her.
Hello? I can't hear you.
Hello? You didn't hear me?
Okay,
Can
I
you
didn't
hear me
hear
now?
that. I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, I said that the most ridiculous story for me in my support group that I've heard so far is the one that said her father and her mother were the ones abusing her. Yes.
So, what will you say? What can you? What really is the problem?
The thing is, the cycle of abuse will continue if you are abused and you don't get help. The truth is, someone who is hurting will hurt another person. So they always say that a hurting person will hurt someone. So somebody who is abused and doesn't get help immediately will abuse somebody else. And it continues just like that. You know, that's why we advocate in our support group. We advocate getting help, seeking help, so that your pain does not destroy you. Because if you don't get help for your pain, the truth is pain can actually destroy, you know. So the person, because I also run a support group for men, and I wanted to find out what goes on in the mind of these men who abuse people. You know, some of them, not all of them, some of them were abused too as children. So they are continuing that circle. You know, up until now, up until recently, nobody was talking, 10 years ago, nobody was talking about getting help if you have mental health issues. Nobody was talking about emotional issues. It's now we're beginning to hear topics like emotional intelligence, anger management, you know. There was nothing like that some 10, 15 years ago, yes. Nobody was talking about what's going on in the mind of a rapist. You know, I had a date with a rapist once, you know, because I wanted to find out. He told me by himself he had raped his cousins, and one of the cousins has actually written a book and has refused to forgive him. But he told me that it was an insatiable lust for sex. He was introduced to sex at the age of 5, you know, and he just continued. So anything around him, in the nights when his cousins are sleeping and he's horny, he pounces on the cousins. So, and I said to him, so why didn't you ever tell your parents? And he said, when we were growing up, you couldn't talk to your parents. It's now, this our dispensation that our children can talk to us. We couldn't talk to our parents. Like I couldn't talk to my mom. But now your child can confidently come and tell you that, oh, Uncle so is doing this to me. And we're able giving our children have information, the kind of information that we don't have. Nobody told us, yes, nobody told us that if an uncle makes you uncomfortable, we are not obligated to hug that uncle or stay with that uncle. You know, now we tell our children that if an uncle hugs you and you're uncomfortable with it, like I have brothers, and my brothers know they're not allowed to hug my girls. You're not allowed to give them a full-fledged hug. No, because they're grown-up girls now. They are young, they are teenagers now. So you can only give them a side hug. So you're not going to hug them and, you know, when an uncle hugs you and squeezes your bum, no, that's a harmful hug. That's no more a hug. But you know, when we were growing up, you will sit on top of your uncle's lap and he's using his penis to rub your bum. You'll just be feeling uncomfortable, but you'll not be able to say anything because nobody told you that if you're uncomfortable, get up. And then we're afraid of adults. We're afraid of adults and we couldn't talk. You know, information is power. I'm happy with the kind of information we have now. Although the information we have now is beginning to help us see the minds and the mindset of a lot of people. You know, so we need a lot of unlearning the bad, and we need to begin to install new apps, you know, teaching them new stuff to say, okay, this is not acceptable, this is not acceptable. The body of the woman has been sexualized for too long, you know, so a lot of men don't understand that they are not entitled to a woman's body, you know, and as a married woman, you hear once your husband pays your bride price, he owns you. No, you don't own her, it's not a property. She's not a furniture in your house, no. You know, so we're beginning to teach more people now, let people know that, okay, this what was acceptable 20 years ago is no more acceptable now, you know. So in my support group, you see people who have children for their fathers, you know, but the public don't know. You just think that one random person impregnated them. You know, these are things that we can't talk about until we get to a point where we stop shaming survivors for coming to talk. We stop blaming them. We stop asking them, why did it take you 20 years? It took her 20 years because that was when she found her voice. And like I will always say, that a survivor will speak when she finds her voice. And when she finds her voice, she becomes shameless. And at that point, you can't shame her. You know, because she's also dealing with that self-guilt and shame that, oh, I brought this upon myself. But the time she finds her voice, she goes for therapy and counseling, because therapy and counseling is very important and is available right now. And she realizes that it's not my fault. The shame is not mine. The shame belongs to the abuser. The shame belongs to the perpetrator. Until we get there, these things will still be shrouded in secrecy.
In secrecy. So when is the right time to start talking to children about sexual abuse? I mean, I was having a conversation earlier. I said, now we talk about sex freely. Sex is everywhere. They sell sex everywhere.
Sex
I mean,
everywhere.
it's no longer a time where it's everywhere. So we should be able to also talk about the abuses that come with this act, because when should we start talking to children about sexual abuse? When is the right time?
Yes.
Because I'm thinking not too much information.
No, you don't. No. You do their age appropriate information. So you don't give all the information. You are not going to tell a 2-year-old what you are going to tell a 15-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when my daughter was 3 years old, I told her that nobody should play with her vagina. You know, so I took her to a friend's house, and my friend bathed her, and my friend was going to wash up for her. And she said, no, Auntie Moji, you can't touch my vagina. And my auntie almost freaked out. You know, she's 16 now, so you can imagine that time, you know. And when I got back from the market, my auntie was like, what are you teaching this girl? I see what this girl told me. I said, Auntie, but that's the name, you know. She now said to me, but you know, this is very good. That means if it was somebody else who touched her vagina, she would have told you.
Exactly.
You know, yes, she'll be able to tell you. I know someone whose daughter was 5, and she was bathing the child, and she was just telling the child she had gone for a class, and she was just telling the child that nobody is allowed to play with your vagina. Do you hear me? Nobody is allowed to pull your pants down and say, open your leg, I want to play. You know, she was just telling the child, and the child said to her, but my daddy does it. My daddy puts his PP there. You know, that was how she found out. Yes. These things are happening in Nigeria. You know, because we don't talk about it, it's sounding like, are you joking? Are you joking? 3 days ago now, somebody was convicted in one of the states. It's on my page. He was sentenced to life imprisonment because he raped a 7-month-old baby to death. What's in the body of a 7-month-old baby? Because you hear stuff like, what was she wearing when she was raped? The emphasis lately has been on the dressing of women. What was she wearing? What was a 7-month-old baby wearing? Last week, we arrested a father who molested the daughter until the girl's vagina he destroyed it. That's the only word I can use.
Your support group?
Yes. My NGO is one of the NGOs in Lagos State that deal with gender-based violence. Yes.
And now the case is in court right now.
The case is going to court on Friday.
Friday. When did this abuse start, according to what she told you?
When did you do what?
When did the abuse start? For this girl you just made an example from your NGO, when did that abuse start?
No, he just slept with her. He just slept with her because she couldn't walk.
Okay.
The bruises were too much, so she couldn't walk.
Wow, this is really, really mind-boggling to listen to. Okay, so in a nutshell, when people come out to, I'll be rounding off soon, so please, if you have a question, you can drop it. I think we have less than 5 minutes or thereabout. So I would like to ask, when people share their story, when survivors or victims share their story, how would you advise people to react? What are the appropriate
I want you to first of all, I want you to know that in this our climate, like in Nigeria especially, it takes a lot of courage to come out and say that you were raped because of the shame that is attached to it. First of all, your family doesn't want anybody to know that happened to you because they don't want you to tarnish the image of that family. Everybody's family is honorable. So it takes a lot of courage to come out. What we do is we tell the person, thank you for the boldness to talk. I believe you. And I always say that if you don't have anything to say, it's better to actually keep short. It's better not to say anything. When the person speaks out, that's the first step to healing. Speaking out is the first step to healing. So the least you can say is that, wow, this person is very courageous. Instead of you to say, why are you just speaking out now? Some of the people who have spoken out and we have almost killed them on social media, they are battling suicidal thoughts now. I don't want to mention any name. And it's more difficult if your perpetrator is someone who is in the public domain. It's more difficult for you to be believed because you are going to be told that, why are you talking now? I saw a post yesterday. I wanted to answer the person, but I just said, leave it. You know, the person did a post saying that if you were raped and you didn't talk that time, and you come and talk now because the person is now popular, that you want to destroy the person's career, you want to destroy the person's image. And I say that the rape to you lasted 5 minutes, but you see, rape kills the soul. It sentences you to a life of perpetual misery. The flashbacks you deal with. Some people have lost their wombs because they were raped. And they can never have children.
Wow, it's so much to talk about, but we're running out of time. But I'd like you to answer this question. Victoria asked, are there programs of the male gender, because they have realized that even the boys can as well be raped too as kids? So
yes, there are programs. There are programs, but it's just that we don't have enough men, which is the truth. I tried doing support group for the men, but because I'm a woman, I didn't really get they didn't really answer me. I remember the first one we did, we had 23 men. And when one of the guys was going to share his story, he said that I should leave the hall. That I put on the flyer that is men only. And that I'm a woman, that what am I doing there? I said, but I'm the host of the event.
We have
but
22 seconds. 22 seconds remaining.
He insisted that I had to go. So we're calling on more men
to come out.
More men who are talking against rape to come out, organize programs, even the religious organizations to organize programs for the boy child more. We're supposed to train the children, not just the girl child.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.